In this video, I'm going to take you through a real-time demo on how to paint people in a minimal style. So this painting was actually inspired by a trip to the Cathedral Green in Exeter, and this was on the day of the Jubilee celebrations, so there were a lot of people milling around, and this little bit of footage here was inspiration for the painting. So I've taken a screen grab, as you can see here, and obviously there are a ton of people and several buildings in the reference, but I'm just going to focus on a few of these and try to be as efficient as possible with my brushwork. So the initial drawing, as you can see, very, very simplistic. I've used the minimum amount of lines I feel I could get away with to capture the poses and posture of the people. I used a burnt umber watercolor marker for the people in the foreground, and then a blue watercolor marker for the outline of the buildings and that woman on the far left off in the distance. It's A2 mixed media paper as usual, and I'm just coming in with a flat brush and my interactive acrylics, and this is just a mix of titanium white and cerulean blue. So I used this last week for my background of the Canadian cowboy, and it's a combo I used to use a lot for skies, and for some reason I just drifted away from it, so I thought, well, I'll keep going with that because I quite like the effect, and it's really good for summer skies as well. Now the flat brush is really good because it's got that nice sharp edge, so it's great for getting up close to the straight lines of edges of buildings and things. So just a few brush strokes there because I wanted a nice even area of colour for the sky. And now I've mixed in a little bit of ultramarine blue into that same mix. And I'm just picking out a few windows on that left-hand building. And simply doing that, as you can see, is vertical lines. Then for the right-hand building, the windows are going to simply be depicted as vertical brush strokes. And any dry brush marks that happen, then that's fine. Just leave it like that. Now I've made up that building in the centre there, just because I felt it worked better with the sky to have a triangular shape. But moving on to the people, now I'm going to come in with pure burnt umber, and I'm just going to pick out shadow areas and try and look at the big shapes. So I forgot to draw the foot earlier, so I felt that needed to be included to make sure that person's leg and foot are really planted on the ground and adds a sense of weight to the person. Now sometimes with this slightly textured paper, you'll get a few dry brush marks, especially if you're using the paint more or less neat out of the tube in the way that I am. But I think that sometimes adds a bit of character to the painting. So here, for example, I'm really just scumbling in a big patch of shadow to kind of just capture the cast shadows and the legs of the two women there. Now, the couple on the right here, notice I've made the guy quite a bit bigger than he is in reality, but I feel that helps kind of create a nice border to the right-hand edge of the painting, and helps add a little bit of a sense of perspective as well, because I think the eye naturally goes from right to left when you look at that couple, because you've got the big guy, the smaller woman, and then off to the people off in the distance there. Now, one of the things I've done there with the lady on the right is you can see the cast shadows on her legs are far paler in the reference than they are in my painting. But I'm not too concerned about that. I like to make the shadows nice and strong, because that tends to create a sense of dramatic lighting. And then cast shadows are really useful for helping to create a sense of form. So the shape of the cast shadows on her legs, or indeed the guy's legs, or indeed the guy sat at the table, or the woman on the left sat at the table. You see the cast shadow from her arm onto her torso when my arm moves out of the way. All of those things help describe the shape of the surface that you're painting, and it's a really efficient way of doing it. because it's just a pattern of dark and light, but it starts to look three-dimensional. Now, for these three people off in the distance here, what caught my eye was the fact that you've got the two children interacting with, you know, the mum. I thought that was quite nice. They've got one child down at the side, more or less just looking off into the distance, and the other one trying to demonstrate something to the adult by, you know, reaching up with her hands. I'm sticking with this same size flat brush throughout because I want to avoid falling into the trap of getting fiddly with my brushwork. So, for example, you know, where I just indicated where the legs are, I haven't really painted any legs. I've just sort of done a swathe of tone. And it's quite a good way to force yourself to make decisions. You know, you can, if you're struggling to paint something because of the size of the brush, you can say to yourself, well, A, do I need to paint it at all? And B, if I do, maybe I can just represent it as a block of tone. And then over to this lady on the left here. So just taking a very simple approach with the brush, just enough in the way of tone to indicate there is a person there that's being, that the light's hitting. So we've got a little bit of shadow. And then I felt the need to just fill in this gap. I guess arguably I could have left this bit undone, but I felt the need to just put in a little bit of an indication of a few more people, very faintly off in the distance, just a little bit of dry brush here. Just to help add to the sense of space and depth. But definitely not wanting to go into too much detail for these distant people. Perhaps a little bit of an indication of a cast shadow. And that's enough for those few people off in the distance. So you can see, you know, there are a ton of people in the reference, but I've painted in total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people from my original drawing. And then, you know, it's just an indication of half a dozen more off in the distance. But there's a sense of movement and a sense of a crowd there. Now, when it comes to adding some colour, my plan is just to do that for the few people in the foreground here. Coming in with cobalt blue now, just straight out of the tube pretty much, a little bit of water added. And again, I'm not getting tangled up in the subtleties of the different blues in this guy's outfit, because the blue of his t-shirt is in reality different to the blue of his jeans and the blue of his cap. But I'm just going to go over those burnt umber patches of shadow and, yeah, let the paint do its thing. And that blue is different enough to the blue I've used in the background for the windows and the sky. But at the same time, it sort of echoes because it's a similar colour. And that's starting to bring that chap to life. Now here we're coming in, or I'm coming in with pure cadmium yellow out of the tube for this lady's top. And again, going straight over those patches of burnt umber, which are now dry. And then I've mixed some of that blue I used on the chap with some of that yellow I had for the green of this lady's top. So a very simple approach to adding colour, not getting tangled up at all with trying to match the colours with reality. But I do like the red of the table. So this is just pure cadmium red. And then taking some of the cadmium yellow, a touch of the cadmium red, and just a touch of the blue for a flesh tone. And then applying that in obviously the appropriate areas where flesh is exposed on this foreground trio. But again, I'm going right over the burnt umber marks that I've put in, but taking care to leave the cup that the chap's holding unpainted and the little watch band unpainted as well. Painting over the shadow on that lady's face, because some of that, that'll knock back that pure burnt umber enough that it'll read reasonably well. And that's that painting done. So pretty much just 1 or 2 layers of paint, and we've been able to create in a minimal way the impression of a crowd. And I really like painting in this efficient way. It makes you sort of stop, go a little bit slower, and just make calm decisions, really. And then just choose to stop the painting when you feel you've done, the absolute minimum you can get away with. And that's kind of the fun of it, really. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next Sunday for the next episode of the Sunday Art Show. Thanks very much for watching.